Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to everyone who's joining. The time is about 4 o'clock. Thank you for being a part of our programs at Cons. I'm Dr. Ivan Khan, and I will be joined by our teammate, Tashfia Hassan. What up, Tashfia? How you doing? You're on mute right now.
Well. Yeah, I'm doing well. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see that people are actually joining in. I know times are tough, and there's a lot going on, but I'm glad to be here.
We're really, we have the big privilege of having you join the conversation. You've just recently gone through the college admissions process yourself, and it was only last year in the summer when you were in our classrooms at Cons, and we were doing very similar conversations at Jackson Heights around college admissions. How has the college admissions process gone for you? It is May 5th, and happy Ramadan to everyone observing. How has that gone for you and your college admissions news? Where did you get in and where do you go to high school? If you want to give the folks a little background as the room fills up.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tashfia Hassan. I'm currently a senior at Stuyvesant High School. I will be attending a BSDO program at Nova Southeastern, which is in Florida. A BSDO program, just for anyone who doesn't really have that, isn't looking into those programs yet. It's basically a direct med path. So I'll be doing my undergrad years and my med school years at Nova. So glad to be here and help everyone out. My college admissions process was quite difficult because I was learning a lot as I was going through the process. And that's a huge part of the process, is learning what's good for yourself over time. So it took me a lot of time, a lot of research to get to where I am now, but I'm happy to help. Yeah.
I'm so grateful to know that you've joined us and that you're on this side of it. It sounds like it was not an overnight process. You had to put a lot of time and research into it. And when did that research and time start for you? Clearly, you applied during 12th grade, senior year at your high school. But when were you starting to research colleges and even think about what colleges are right for you and what you want to go into, things like that?
So I think ever since I stepped into Stuyvesant, it's such a competitive environment where you kind of think of college right away when you enter through the doors. But I started researching a lot in the beginning of the spring of my junior year. So around this time, for a lot of you guys who are joining right now, I was looking into colleges. I was looking into what would be good for me. A lot of names stood out for me based on how people that were upperclassmen were doing during the college process. So I really started looking into schools and what I wanted to do by using the College Board website. And that just gave me a basic general guide of the schools that would be within my comfort zone.
Wow, that's awesome. So for everyone joining in and joining our conversation, I'm Dr. Ivan Khan, the CEO. We'll probably be going through these intros a few times in the first 10, 15 minutes as we get your colleagues and classmates to join us. If everyone can please open your public chat box and just type in your current grade and the high school that you're from. If you don't mind just doing that, we'll get some participation going. We'd love to open up questions throughout the process. As a lot of you remember, we administered a 25-question college admissions survey/quiz just to get a feeler about your understanding of the requirements and the process of getting into a great college, and hopefully at a really low cost. As I've mentioned with Tashfia Hassan, our co-presenter today, we've had these conversations almost every single spring, summer, and fall at Cons Tutorial in various shapes and forms. And we want to make sure that we are bringing this information to all of you at home, especially when, we're 4 days removed from college decision day. So, Tashfia, we got some folks from Long Island, from Queens, from the Beacon High School, from Midwood High School, from Brooklyn Tech. We got New Rochelle in the house. We have mostly juniors. I think the juniors are thinking about it most urgently. What were you thinking around this time last year? Clearly, when you were a junior, you did not have to deal with a global pandemic. So take us through that.
So definitely times are really different for juniors now. But when I was a junior, I was in the same boat where I was thinking about college a lot. So I was focused on my grades and making sure that my GPA was where I wanted it to be. So I was trying really, really hard in school just to make sure that was doing well. around this time as well, there were a lot of activities going on. So there was like Arista going on, and Big Sib, which is like basically something at my school where there's like 100 or so upperclassmen who are helping out freshmen with like navigating how to get into like how to figure out the high school process. So there was a lot of that going on too. And in general, I just wanted to make sure that my standardized tests as well, like my SAT, my ACT, were at the place that I wanted it to be. So I was studying a lot for that. But yeah, so those are some of the things that I did while I was in my junior year. And I also started looking into this program called Matriculate, which actually helped me so much with the college process. It's for anyone who has an income under $80,000. You can sign up for this program, and it will allow you to be matched with a like with someone that's currently in college. So my advisor was this junior at Princeton, and she guided me through the whole process, made sure that I knew what colleges to look out for, how to create my safety reach and my safety and reach schools and my target schools. She also helped me with like figuring out financial aid. So there are a lot of programs out there that can definitely help people out with figuring out the process. So I was looking at those as well.
Fantastic. Did you always know what types of schools you wanted to go to, or did you learn a lot more once you started doing this research, once you started getting paired up with your mentor at Matriculate? When do you think you made your like level up on understanding the process before you jumped in to apply yourself?
I think the summer before my junior year was super critical for me to basically like figure out what schools I wanted. I always heard a lot of names going around. Going to Stuyvesant, there's a lot of clusters that people end up going to. So like schools like UMichigan, so University of Michigan are really popular. University of Chicago, Boston College, Boston University. A lot of these schools are really like names that I heard a lot from my freshman year and like going up into my senior year. And so like I knew those schools, but I wasn't too familiar with like if I wanted to actually go to them. So that was the time junior year when I really like started like figuring out what schools I actually wanted to go to. Frankly, Nova wasn't even on my list until a lot of my friends who actually go there or applied there recommended the school to me. So definitely talking to upperclassmen was like a huge part of the process, and figuring out what programs are going to be ideal. That definitely took a lot of time in my junior year as well.
Fantastic. If it's all right with everyone in the audience, we will get started with our review. We got some stats to first of all look over. We had about 200 plus responses so far, Tashfia, and the median score was around 52. So there's 25 questions, 4 points each. So around like the median score was around 13 or 12 or 13 questions. We did have a few folks who are pretty savvy about the process with an 84, and a few folks who kind of mailed it in with an 8. This does reflect the normal distribution statistically, and hopefully no one has any questions on this. Did everyone get a chance to get your score by email? If you please check your email that you used in your application, you can check out what score you received. So while you keep the screen on, just check that out. And we're going to keep going. Frequently missed questions, so you can take a look. On average, college graduates earn this much more than those who without college degrees. The correct response is, let's see, which of the following are personal statement prompts? So we had a lot of under awareness around the college prompts for the personal statements, as well as the most important thing that colleges look at. This was kind of a trick question, so we'll definitely go through all the questions right now. And on that note, let's take it from here. What grade are you currently in? So we sent this to about 200 and change 9th through 11th graders throughout Constatorial's SAT 1 classes. Shout out to all of our SAT teachers and students, and also our GPA classes. The weird thing is, there's the regents have been canceled, and a lot of our grades aren't, numerical, and they're going to be getting like meet standards or below standards for lower grades. So what's that been like? I know you don't have to worry about it too much, Tashfia, but what's that been like for underclassmen at your school, the grading system? Because the GPA the GPA is a big part of the college admissions process. So what's the conversation like around that?
So my brother's actually a freshman at Edison right now. And so it's been really strange seeing how he has to like transition into like this online learning platform. A lot of the work is it's just very like hard for kids to stay motivated. There not a lot of people know what's going on either, because like policies are constantly changing every single day. There are always new updates. People have a lot going on in their lives. So it's been really stressful from what I'm seeing on like Facebook forums from underclassmen and just hearing the experiences of underclassmen. It's just kind of hard to predict what they like, how to form your college app, or like what to really like do, especially since test dates aren't really like updated and there's a lot of confusion. But I think that the best thing that people can do during this time is definitely invest in their interests, because I think those, or like whatever things that they want to learn more about, because that will really help you in terms of not only standing out for your college app, but also for your own personal knowledge. And it's really hard to find a time like this to like really work on yourself. So I recommend people do that.
And I guess that comes really true for our abilities to build our extracurricular profile, that aspect of our college application. Also any writing skills we have to kind of pick up just to have a better sense of who we are and understanding these personal prompts. So let's get through the quiz. And to all our students, please type your questions into the chat. Do not feel shy, and we will do everything we can to address those questions. So for the first question, we wanted to get a general knowledge idea. What percentage of U.S. students actually attend college? And this number, in the year 2020 has reached 60 to 70%. That wasn't always the case for generations prior to yours. For example, 30, 40 years ago, in the mid-1980s and the early 1990s, when a lot of, your parents emigrated to this country, a lot of folks in the U.S. workforce lacked college degrees. I think it wasn't until the 1980s and 1990s that there was a tipping point. So until the 1970s, the vast majority of Americans did not have a four-year college degree. And that puts them at 50, 60 years old now. So outside of New York State, when you travel, you'll see it's very common for a lot of 50, 60-year-olds to not have a four-year college degree. However, over time, since the 80s and 90s, that trend reversed for numerous reasons, with the economy picking up and things like that, and folks realizing that a four-year college degree became more and more aligned with securing financial security in the job market. So that's just the quick, straight fact, 60 to 70%. But what does that mean for us? By the way, quick reference point. What percentage of kids at your high school are going off to college, Tashfia?
Probably 99%.
Probably 99%. And that may be true for competitive high schools like Bronx Science, where I attended, Brooklyn Tech, Stuyvesant High School, and even some top colleges in upper income areas. However, this conversation is not pushing college to everyone. There are, certain very, very gifted individuals who are fantastic computer science coders, and, there's always that diamond in the rough, that next Bill Gates, who ended up in Harvard and left his final year. But, increasingly we understand that college is kind of part of the road to college, career, and financial security, although not always the case. So take it with a grain of salt. On average, college graduates earn this much more than those without college degrees. Statistics, all the figures show that on average we're making $35,000 to $40,000 more. The median income for most families in New York City varies greatly from neighborhood to neighborhood. In many neighborhoods, it's between $35,000 to $40,000 in the outer boroughs. But if you go to certain affluent areas, even Long Island City, with changes in the neighborhood demographic, those numbers could be 80,000. And you're thinking about it, you're like, wait a minute, most families in Long Island City are not making $80,000. They're making way less. So you got to keep in mind that there are a lot of super wealthy earners moving into neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Long Island City, and the gentrification that's happening all around our neighborhoods and kind of distorting those figures. So you got to keep in mind how much it costs to have a standard of living in a place like New York and how expensive that is. And with that in mind, the average college graduate can earn anywhere from 35 to 40K more than the non-college graduate. Tashfia, for most students, you have ties outside of Stuyvesant. So let's go to some of your other ties in the community with other student organizations. What's the biggest reason that most of you and your friends are applying to college? Why even bother? We have folks from Bard, Center Reach, James Madison, Beacon. Why college for you and your friends?
So a lot of my friends typically come from poorer backgrounds or low-income backgrounds where our parents haven't really gone to college. Some of our parents don't even speak English. A lot of our parents are struggling, and for us, it's always been instilled within us that going to college is going to be the way that we can basically rise up the social ladder in a sense, and we are basically going to be able to live a life that our parents kind of dreamed of coming here for. Our parents are definitely to some degree satisfied with where they are here, but they obviously came here so that their children can do better. And honestly, college is an opportunity for people like me who don't come from the most affluent backgrounds to meet more people that can actually help us, and we can be a part of a new circle that's a part of this quote unquote brown excellence. So that's what we go to college for, to not only make have the experiences and have the degrees, but also eventually have the life that our parents really want us to have, and we want to have for ourselves too.
So I'm going to open it to the comments section. Have your parents have had conversations with you about going to college? And if they are they forcing you or really pushing you to a STEM career? Growing up, when I did, my late father really wanted me to become a physician. And even though I became a physician, I'm not working in clinical medicine anymore. So type into the box if your parents say, yes, parents are pushing me, or if there's any particular field that you're interested in or parents are pushing you towards. This is something I want to talk about right now. I, for one, Tashfia, I never realized when I was in high school that I wanted to learn about economics and business and management and administration. My parents kind of thought, hey, we're brown, we're immigrants, you need to, be financially secure, go be a doctor. So I spent all my energy in high school to, go into Sophie Davis. And if I have to speak to any of our students here, I would never push anyone who's uncertain about going into medicine into a combined medical program, similar to the one that you're in. So to everyone who's in our classroom right now, we'd definitely urge you, remember that this is going to be your journey. Remember that this is going to be your life. Remember this is going to be your job. Your parents are probably going to hate the fact that I'm saying this to you right now. Don't listen to Dr. Ivan Khan, but we're trying to push you to be everything that you're meant to be. I see, and I see a lot of stuff like medicine, pharmacy, nursing. And oftentimes, as soon as you see pharmacy and nursing, you start thinking about other things. Oh man, here are our brown parents pushing young women towards careers that you can have a family too. So Tashfia, computer science, Anthony, holler, coding. I'm a fan of that. For everyone here, before I ask Tashfia the question, my dad really pressured me into, putting all my energies into Sophie Davis. And I'm so glad that some of the students here are having conversations with their parents, or they're becoming more understanding. And, I got stuck in a combined medical program for about 7-8 years. I made sure as heck to graduate. And it was a lot of pressure. My dad became sick then, and I earned my degree. However, I inside a week or two before I graduated, I knew I did not want to practice medicine. To sit my parents down, just like Sharika here and Sarah here, and I had to tell them, yo, I'm getting the degree, but I do not want to practice medicine. Please give me the blessing to do what I want. So, that was after going through 8 years of college and medical school. Tashfia, is this decision to becoming a physician yours, or is it your parents? Take us through your mindset in accepting your offer to a combined medical program. And shout outs to all the students who are participating in the chat box. I encourage everyone else to, and we can hopefully give you some more targeted advice. Go for it, Tashfia.
So I never really wanted to go into medicine because my parents growing up were like, they had this kind of mentality shift over time, but growing up, they really wanted me to go into medicine. They thought it was a secure career. They thought STEM was something that was not only financially secure, but a lot of my parents are Muslims, so they always think that like giving back as a doctor is like the best form of like sunnah that you can have, or like the best blessing that you can give to people. So they always thought that being a doctor was something that was going to be really rewarding, and it definitely is. But growing up, I rebelled. I didn't want to do that, and I went into social work for a long time in high school. And so throughout high school and elementary school, for as long as I can remember, honestly, I've always been advocating. So like I remember when I was in elementary school, I wanted a community garden, so I went to the PTA, did a fundraiser, and we were able to get it. So things like that, just like small acts within my community were something that I always did, and I always found myself to like be gravitating towards community work. And that's when I started joining organizations like Malika, where I taught self-defense to women. And that's something that I immersed myself into and I became really, really involved in. That still is a huge part of my experience. And like, that's a huge part of like what made me, especially like coming out of high school. But one of the things that was really pushed me into medicine was actually being in the hospital. I had a family experience when my grandfather was really sick for like a year and a half.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And so being in the hospital every single day, talking to nurses, also taking a lot of science classes that weren't just biology, but they were talking about infectious diseases and epidemiology and exploring like different facets of medicine really, really like stuck with me. And they became some of my favorite classes in high school. So having the personal experience where I was constantly in the hospital, and that's where I just found myself being the most comfortable, and taking these really engaging, thoughtful classes really allowed me to understand that like medicine was something that I definitely wanted to go into. You spoke earlier about how like my parents, obviously, like as they started seeing that I was doing social work, they supported me with like whatever major I would want to go into. They didn't like really pressure me into social work into medicine as much because they saw that I was taking a different path. But I eventually came to settle with medicine because it was something that I just really found myself to be like constantly intrigued by. There's so many developments in medicine, and there's so much more interaction with medicine than I thought there was before. Like I always thought that medicine was very scientific, but as I started like learning more from other people, there's so many interactions with medicine that go into psychology and economics, and so that's what really gravitated me towards that. And deciding to be in a combined med program is definitely a huge commitment, and I still get a lot of comments from like parents and family members talking about how I should go into like being a career that's better as a woman, like being a nurse practitioner or going as a farm tech or doing things like that, because they think that I need to have a family and I won't have enough time to be a good mother or get married really late because of the choice that I want to take. But I think that I really wanted to go into the combined med program for myself and really see myself as an investment, and putting this time into it is like something that really made me want to go to Florida, which is super far, and invest time into that kind of program. So
thank you so much for sharing that. I know that this has been a big problem in a lot of immigrant communities, not just South Asian Muslim communities. It's for any immigrant community, with the pressures of having to survive in a new country and then having children and having all these dreams of what the most secure thing is. And then you mix up the whole, traditional society structures, and it becomes really unfair to young women, especially, and even some young men, for the types of pressures that they have to go through. So we'll definitely be chatting about that more. But for now, let's go to the next question. This is probably the question that a lot of students got wrong. The most important things colleges look at during admissions are high school GPA, honors AP, standardized exams, extracurriculars, personal statement, letters of recommendation, awards recognition, or all the above. A little bit of you guys got to watch out. The key word here is most important thing. So we should have written thing colleges look at during admissions, and we wrote things. However, if it's most important, it's high school GPA. And it is true that all of the above are looked at, but it's also very, very important that all students know that they're not looked at equally. So just to kind of give you a quick snapshot, high school GPA for most top competitive colleges is probably 50 to 60% of your total academic profile. For certain really STEM-oriented places, that may even be higher. But let's just say, for argument's sake, 50 to 60, 65% is your high school GPA. Oftentimes, that is also mixed with how competitive are your classes. Did you sit back and take the easiest route to get through high school and take the most basic classes? Or did you challenge yourself, starting sophomore year with an honors class or two in your strongest subjects? Did you take the advantage of some of the AP classes that were offered in your high school? And again, we recognize that not every high school has the same number of APs. Not every high school has the same quality of honors teachers or resources. However, these are all things that colleges look at in a blend. So not only do they look at your GPA, whether it's out of 4, whether it's out of an A minus, A plus, or whether it's out of 100%, but they really want to ensure that you are taking challenging coursework so they get a sample of how well you can do in your college experience in their classrooms. So I would combine high school GPA and your difficulty level into one big part of that pie. And the next biggest part of the pie that is often standardized exams, and only because that's the other only academic way that colleges can look at one student from Georgia and compare them to an applicant from New York. So a lot of you here are most likely New Yorkers. Let's keep in mind that NYU is probably one of top 3 or top 5 most applied to colleges in the country. And you got kids all over New York City and our neighboring areas like we have in this room, plus kids from like Georgia to Colorado to all these other states. So you got to make sure the colleges want to see a standardized way of looking at everyone. After that, we're done with the academics. They really, really want to see your leadership skills. Did you hold leadership skills in your extracurricular activities? Did you have a good assortment of extracurricular activities? And how far did you take them? So those are a lot of things I'll be looking at. Personal statement, that's another fancy term for the college essays, and letters of recommendation. There are types of letters of recommendation that you'll need to look forward to. And of course, if you're collecting some awards and recognitions along the way in your debate tournaments or competitions or essay contests or writing contests, or there's a slew of things, it's always important for you guys to apply yourselves and give it a shot. I think a lot of this will naturally come up in other parts of the conversation, but we'll give everyone 30 seconds, 60 seconds to type in your questions on the chat box, and we will continue on to the next question right after. Questions on the criteria of getting to the top colleges? Does taking college now classes show your difficulty of classes? College now, they make it clear that they will support me through. Okay, so does taking college now classes? Tashfia, are you familiar with the college now classes?
Yeah, I am. So college now isn't necessarily for showing the difficulty of your classes in high school, because college now isn't like a universal thing across like other states and everything, but it definitely does help if you go to like CUNY schools and you want to transfer credits. It does show that it's really good too as well if you want to show like that you're taking courses outside of your school to like that are harder, but it depends. It's not necessarily you can add it to your application, but not all the credits transfer over to other institutions. So let's say if you're going to NYU, it might not transfer over the college now credits.
Thank you. We'll address that more. I'm interested in going to Sophie Davis. What GPA do you think is well enough and the SAT score? So when I applied to Sophie Davis, we had 6 students from my high school get in. The median GPA between us, it ranged. We had students with a 91, 92 GPA all the way to a 97, 98 GPA at a specialized high school. So that median, anyone could fall anywhere between that. And a lot of those differences have to do with the level of classes you took, like the difficulty. And I think one of the things that helped me most was I gave a lot of volunteer hours to my local hospitals. I really, really exhibited active work and hours at numerous healthcare facilities, which helped me. As far as SATs for Sophie Davis, Sophie Davis looks at the ACTs a lot. So if you want to hack and to get into Sophie Davis, I would absolutely suggest everyone preparing for the ACTs in addition to the SATs because of that science section. And don't take the exam at Sophie Davis if it's an option. Take the ACTs separately so you can use your ACT score for other applications just to help boost your application profile in case you did really well. SAT scores, I've recently interviewed SAT candidates to Sophie Davis, and we had at least 3 students that we were involved with, and at least one of them got in. And that person also happened to get into Harvard. So clearly they are on some separate level for Sophie Davis. However, for most applicants, it can vary. It can be 1450 to 1550, but the SAT is not something that Sophie Davis dwells on too much. Most of their applicants are incredibly competitive. It's just mainly a matter of your extracurricular activities have to really match what they're looking for. Where can you take dual enrollment? What GPA and SAT score do you need to get into NYU? Motasim. We got some slides and questions on NYU coming up right now, so just hold on to that. Where can you take dual enrollment classes? Tashfia, we got a question on that.
Yeah, so I was just as curious as you, and I was like, just wanted to quickly Google it to make sure that I knew like what I was, just to give the correct information. But you mentioned College Now classes beforehand. College Now classes also count as dual enrollment classes. So over the summer or even during the school year, a lot of colleges nearby, I know that Hunter does it, City College does it. They offer classes that are basically like College Now classes that you can do. You can look into other universities, like Columbia might have programs where you can, it might not be necessarily college credit that you can transfer over, but it will definitely like help with your application. There are other questions here as well.
I think for those other questions, let's get through more of the quiz. And I think a lot of these questions are going to be incorporated into our quiz review. So Nishat, Sharik, Afra, and Raida, thank you so much. The most important things colleges look at, we just went through that question. The next question, colleges look at the following when considering GPA. This is a quick one. We want to remind everyone that every single final grade from, your final report card grades from grade 9 through 12 are looked at. I remember sitting in the auditorium at the end of 10th grade in Bronx Science when they told us, by the way, all of your grades count. And we're like, what? Isn't junior year the most important part of the college application process? Because we keep hearing that in the hallways. Junior year is the most important year. That's when your SATs are, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, snap. Why didn't our school officials tell us that from day one? I would have been practicing even more if I knew it counted for so much. So that's just a rude reminder for a third of us. But luckily, all of us got that lesson with 66% of students getting that question correct. And now moving on to the next few questions. What percentages of colleges look at SAT, SAT2, and GPA? We put 75 to 100%, and that is what percentages of top colleges. There are, hundreds of schools, whether community colleges or state schools or other types of private schools that are looking for different types of kids. They're not necessarily looking for the students with the SAT, SAT2, and GPA all, in the top of their class. They are looking for folks with a diverse set of talents and more holistic, skill sets. So we put 75 to 100% because that's what the vast majority of top schools will be looking at all three. So, just wanted to remind you all of that. Students can take the SAT the following number of times. There's no limit. We don't recommend taking the SAT more than twice. Because if you, let's say you got the median score required to get into your top school is 1,500. and you take your first attempt and you get a 1430, and you're proud, and you're a little bummed out because you have to take it again to reach your median, your target score. If you get a 1480 and you have like 3-4 months left to do other things, I wouldn't suggest going back for that 20 points extra. You could use those 3-4 months and take on another job and add that to your application, or take on another volunteer opportunity or take on some kind of leadership opportunity and add that to your skill set. I think that would show more for your application status and your profile than 20-30 points higher on the SAT. However, if the target, the median score you're looking for is a 1450, and you're at a 1380, and you really, really need to get yourself into that range. And again, we're not going to be only applying to one school. We're all going to apply to countless schools with 5 top choices, 6 top choices. If the difference is a lot, you do have to invest that time to get your score closer to the median cutoff. However, the median SAT required to be considered for admission at the freshman class of Columbia. We chose Columbia because we're a New York City-based organization. We've got a lot of New York City heads. I'm a Columbia University alum from their business school. I did not get into their undergraduate school during college. I got into Sophie Davis, but the median score required for admission to Columbia is 1505. And I'll turn over to Tashfia. Tashfia, Columbia is probably the most exciting college we like to talk about in New York City. As far as ambition, how many kids got into Columbia from your school this year?
At least 10 to 15 kids from my school got into Columbia this year.
And again, I'm not going to count your school as the norm because you are a part of a specialized school, and there's a very unique entrance process, kids from all over New York City. So the kids at Stuyvesant are really competing against the other kids at Stuyvesant and other kids at similar type of schools. What were some unique things that got some kids in? Because I'm sure all of them had the 95 GPA. I'm sure all of them had a 1500 SAT. But I'm sure there are a lot of kids with those stats that got rejected from Columbia. What was it about this year's class from Stuyvesant that Columbia was looking out for?
They all, knowing them, they all were just so positive, which is something that I just noticed from them. They were all really good people throughout high school, but also the things that they did, they genuinely cared about. Like one of the kids that I got on, he was on a Frisbee team for 4 years. Another girl I know, she did cheer and gymnastics. There are a lot of people that did whatever they wanted to do, and they really invested themselves into that. There are tons of people that were into comp sci, so they went out of their way and did programs for that. So a lot of people, they had great SATs, they had great SAT2s, GPAs, but they also were very invested in their extracurricular activities and made sure to do something new that they really cared about every single school year.
Can't wait to hear about the next school that we're going to ask about. Thank you for that. So one of the things I picked up on were Columbia is really looking, or any top school is looking for students that are dedicated as heck towards their craft. If you're into cheerleading and gymnastics, you better have some kind of captain level accomplishments or some awards to talk about. So let's look at the next college we ask about. And again, we have a bias towards New York City colleges because we do recognize that a lot of the applicants here are limited geographically. So we will talk about schools out of state, and luckily Tashfia is one of the perfect people to speak to because of her college life in Florida. The median SAT required to be considered for admission to the freshman class of New York University is 1440. How familiar are you with this statistic, Tashfia? You didn't get a chance to look at the quiz. And how big was NYU a goal for your friends outside of Stuyvesant? I know Stuyvesant has the majority of kids will still apply to NYU. It's right there. It's kind of like a sister organization almost, but for other kids outside of Stuyvesant, what does NYU mean to other people that you've known, and what does it mean to your graduating class at Stuyvesant?
So I'll start with just how what it means to other people that aren't in my school. For a lot of people, that NYU is kind of like one of those peak schools. It's like a Columbia for them, and it's really, really an amazing opportunity for them to like want to go there. So they like invest a lot of their energy to either end up going to NYU or Columbia. But most of the time people shoot for NYU as like their goal school. So a lot of people I know really invested themselves in doing classes at NYU or just touring a lot. I personally went on tours, and NYU is like one of the schools that I really wanted to go to, and I even considered EDing there. For people at Sty, a lot of people from my school end up going to NYU. So I think that in my class, there are at least 50 to 100 people who either got into NYU or committed already. So yeah, so there are a lot of people in my school that end up going to NYU as an option that's like really secure. It's local. It allows them to have opportunities in the city that they can where they can just do internships. NYU has a great program as well where undergrads can basically go into this database that gives them like jobs and internships that they can do in like a variety of fields. So it's not just like medicine or research. They can also do it in film. So I really think NYU is just great for anyone who wants to explore the city more or definitely wants to challenge themselves a lot more as well and meet a lot of people from across the world.
Man, I'm a huge fan of NYU. I have a lot of personal memories there as a child. My late father used to actually teach economics at NYU, and he was a junior faculty member, and he was also doing his PhD at the time. So NYU has this famous library called Bopst Library right across Washington Square Park, and I was a 7-year-old, and he used to take me to West Fourth, station, and we used to walk over right past the basketball courts at the Cage, and a lot of fond memories of attending NYU with my dad. I'd actually gotten into NYU, and that's probably where I would have attended if I didn't get into Suffolk Davis. However, to anyone and everyone applying to NYU, good luck. And it's a fantastic school, and I'm clearly biased because I'm a proud New Yorker, but, we'll come back to that. On average, top colleges require this many SAT 2s. SAT 2s. Take us through what are the usual number of SAT 2s that most colleges require? Tashfia, as far as all the applications that you went through, we knew that there was at least 2. So what's the usual split? Do you do them all in math and hope for the best, or do you do them all in comp sci? And what's the usual advice that you give to those after you?
So I would say, someone's asking, how do you think the SAT 2 requirement is going to change? I'm not sure about that, in particular about changes to the SAT 2 requirement, but from what I did throughout high school was like, if I took a lot of like higher level classes for biology. So since I had that basis in biology, I would take the SAT 2. If you're taking an AP, let's say you're taking AP Chem, I highly recommend if you're taking an AP in a subject to go forth and do the SAT 2. You should, a lot of like higher level colleges want you to do 2. Having one humanities and one science or math SAT 2 is great, but if you're good at math 2, then go for that. I highly recommend going for math 2 and a science, just from my experiences. But if you have a specialty and you're really, really good at English, then go for it. But definitely make sure to have either variety in your SAT 2s or in like other classes that you're taking. So
I know we got a lot of 11th graders here. We don't know what the college admissions scene is going to look like through COVID. The COVID response in this country has been devastatingly uneven. As you all can see, it hit New York City very, very badly in the first phases. And then in the following months, the trends look like it's going to be worse in other states before it gets any better. Right now, if the SAT 1s are offered, they are looking to offer the SAT 1s in the fall in October online. I don't have any word on the SAT 2 confirmation as far as what the College Board is looking to do around the SAT 2s for this fall. As soon as we do find out, we will be sure to report that back to you guys. Great question, Anthony, during our classrooms on the weekends or future workshops like this. So in summary, I would suggest for those who are 10th graders, to Tashfia's remarks, aim for the most challenging SAT2 if it's a particular subject you're doing really well in. If you're taking an AP level course right now and you finished up your AP Bio or AP Chem, we absolutely recommend continuing your preparation for the Bio or Chem SAT2s, just because you've gone through that difficult coursework already. So you do got to keep in mind the humanities requirements. So you can't invest all your eggs into the math and sciences. You do want to make sure to have a humanities specialty in there. We're going to go on. On average, median SAT2 is required by top college. When we say top college, again, Ivies, XYZ, we say 700 to 800. When I was a kid, my dad was like, yo, you need a 720 at the minimum on your Chem SAT2s if you want to be considered for for SOFI. What was your target SAT2 score? I know I have a niece in 11th grade at Great Neck South High School. She was like looking for a 770. Kids nowadays, y'all, are very competitive. So what were you looking for, Tashfia?
So ideally, I wanted to get a 70-50 plus on my SAT2s just to stand out. Obviously, aiming for that 800 is great, but actually, for certain exams, it's kind of difficult to do that. So I was definitely trying to aim for like a 720 plus, 750 plus, like around that range. It just depended on what tests like the world history exam. It's pretty hard to do, or even any type of history exam in general. It's really hard to like hit that 700 peak. So just being above 700 is great. So depending on the test, definitely try to aim for that range.
And overall, if things were to get back to normal, and even if we were allowed to take the SAT2s in an online digital version, my personal advice to my niece and anyone here would be, if you have to take the SAT1s again, mentally focus on October being your final time taking your SAT1s. Hopefully you've had a chance to take it once, and if you didn't due to the crisis, October will be, your one sitting in October will be good enough. I would mentally keep November aside for SAT2s if things can go back to normal. And that also takes us into the conversation on early decision and early action. And you can't really take some of these exams in December and have them count if you're taking their early action or early decision. So a 700 in one subject does not mean the same thing as a 700 in a different subject. The scaling of these of the SAT2s can vary greatly. So, but in general, 700 to 800 is where you want to be. So the Ivy Leagues. We included this question to remind everyone that even though there are, thousands of colleges, only 8 of them are Ivy, and they just happened to get grouped together a long time ago. That doesn't mean that these are the 8 best colleges, end all be all in the United States or the world. So the vast majority of the test takers got the question correct. The Ivies are Brown, Columbia, Cornell, Dartmouth, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and a few others. I can't see the prints here, but you guys, you can spot some of the ones that aren't Ivies and the others. But I guess the reason why that was important, because you wanted to compare and contrast to the other non-Ivy top-tier schools. Ivy League is kind of just a label. I wouldn't be any less proud of someone getting into Stanford than them getting into Cornell, or someone getting into Caltech than getting into Dartmouth. So we got to be sure that you want to be above the labels and not fall into those traps. We want to share about that, Tashfia. I know when it comes to applying for colleges, there's a lot of ego that gets in the way. Sometimes we as students and teachers can waste our time applying to places because our best friend did, and we just don't want to miss out. What if they get into a better place than I do, and I'll feel weird about it? Anything you want to share about the Ivies versus other top-tier schools that are non-Ivies?
I think that the Ivy Leagues definitely do get a lot of their hype, and that should not stop you from looking into other great schools. Like, I know for my year personally, a lot of people were looking into really good liberal arts colleges like Williams or Pomona or schools like that offer a lot more that other Ivy Leagues may not be able to offer. And they have a lot more of a relaxed environment that Ivy Leagues may not have. So definitely, I think that people should invest a lot of time into like researching, not only more into the Ivy Leagues. If you're into going to an Ivy League like Columbia or Dartmouth, feel free to look into that. But definitely spend some time looking at other schools like MIT, or even schools that are within a range. A lot of people might not have the stats to get into these really, really elitist colleges, but looking into other great colleges that have programs that that they offer for like direct, that offer like direct admission to certain fields that they may be into, or are able to offer more services that are financially suitable. I think that people should definitely be looking into those options as well.
Thank you so much, Tashfia. And I think we all also wanted to include this for any kids of immigrants. Oftentimes immigrants, our parents, we get caught up in bragging rights or the model minority myth. Well, my child got into Columbia and your child got into NYU. Hence, I did a better job as a parent. All that stuff is like crap. And we understand that as immigrants from different countries, we all have a certain amount of pressure mentally to, prove it to ourselves that we made it and have a sense of validation for a lot of our sacrifices. So no part of me is blaming that part of minority culture. However, to everyone in the chat room and everyone watching at home and the videos later, you have to go past the labels and do the research and speak to students at those schools and find out more from them how much they enjoy it. We really got to start, talking about college experiences and who's, career matching more so than just some of these old brand names. So thank you so much for touching on that, Tashfia. Let's go to the next question. The difference between early decision and early action is that early decision plans are binding while early action plans are non-binding. So with this, Tashfia, can kids apply both early decision and early action?
You can apply to, it depends on, okay, so there's restrictive early action, which is basically like you can apply, it's kind of like early decision in a sense, where you can only apply to one private school and then one other public institution. But usually when you do early decision, you're committing 100%. You can do some early action schools, but it's most people, whenever they do early decision, they just shoot for that one school. But if there are other schools that like public schools that you can apply to, yeah.
And one of the reasons that we included this question is because there is an advantage by applying early if a certain student knows that their dream school is UPenn, for example. You've had an older cousin and a neighbor go to UPenn and you've heard about it, and you've visited and you've had exposure, to their campus, and maybe you've taken a summer class online with them and you have the academic profile. If you're applying early to UPenn, your chances of getting in might be double. It may be 12 to 15% acceptance rate. And we have these figures in some of our other slide sets and our other programs. But if you happen to miss out on the early decision application to UPenn and you apply in the regular applicant pool, your chances may drop to like the 6-7% range, which is far, far more competitive than 15%, which can be 2 to 3 times the likelihood. So early decision, my number one piece of advice would be do as much research as you can on the acceptance rates and how well that's a fit for you. You never want to commit yourself to a place that's not a good fit for you. So take that process very seriously and good luck. All right, next question. We're getting to the end of it. Thanks to everyone for your patience, and we'll open up for Q&A. The SATs are administered during these following months. Easy stuff. Most of you should make a note of this. Please do memorize March, May, June, August, October, November, December. For all the 11th graders, due to coronavirus and COVID, as you all know, June has been canceled. I'm pretty certain that the August SATs All right. I'm confident that they're not going to be available in New York State. And last I read, it was going to be administered in the fall, in October, online if we haven't opened up normally due to safety health precautions. Most early action and early decision deadlines are during this month. Number one answer is November, which is correct. Tashfia, if you want to tell us a little bit about the amount of stress you and your friends carried, the ones who decided to apply early, take us through a little bit of that in a New York minute and tell us any tips that we can do to avoid that level of distress.
So to avoid the stress that you have during November, you can definitely prepare beforehand. Like over the summer, try to get a lot of your personal statement stuff done because that takes a lot of time. A lot of the stress is just research and figuring out what school is like the best fit for you. If you're going to do early decision or early action, if you're considering eating to a school in New York or even nearby, definitely visit, figure out if that school feels right for you. A lot of it is just personal statements, figuring out financials, seeing if it's a fit for you. And that's basically what most of the stress comes from in November. And a lot of schools have early action deadlines open. So like a lot of people want to get their applications done as soon as possible. So that's where a lot of the stress comes from as well, because you want to prepare as much as you can to apply to as many schools as you can, early action.
So with early action, you're able to apply to more schools. And with that, what's the advantage of early action versus regular decision pool?
So early action, typically this pool is a lot smaller. It definitely, in certain cases, it is more competitive, but also if you know it's a safety school and you apply early action, you get to know that you're going to have a spot at that school earlier on. So you have that kind of confidence and that safety as you go through the process into regular decision. You like by the time that you're in regular decision and you're like doing those applications, you'll know some of the schools that you've gone into because you apply to them early action.
So if it were any of our students here, or when I take this conversation back to my niece, next time I call her or see her in months, for early action, would you advise just safeties? Or would you advise a couple of safeties, a couple of targets, a couple of reaches? And again, it's reach is the highest, then target, then safety. So how would you split up those investments of your applications for early action, which is non-binary?
For a lot of early action schools that are safeties, like typically they don't have any supplements. So those are the easiest to get out of your way. So having some safeties, I think having a mix is the best because then you have like different levels of expectation. So if you EA or do early action to your safeties, it's great to have that confidence. You know that those schools you're most likely going to get into. So it'll help you have at least some options available early on. And then having some target schools like Northeastern. For a lot of people as a target school, they don't have any supplements and they have their application open early action. Fordham is another school that's open early action. So those schools all as well, you can apply to them. They don't have any supplements and it's just easy to get out of the way. And it's good to know if those target schools are with some of your options as well. And if you are thinking about like going for a reach school like Yale, let's say, that school is an EA school. It's our REA, so you can definitely go for it. If you're considering schools like Princeton as well, which is restrictive early action, be considerate of like figuring out if it's a good fit for you and just seeing what the percentages are for early action versus REA. Early action versus regular decision. Sorry.
So it's a combination of a lot of factors we all have to look at. But it sounds like one of the most important pieces of advice is also look at the numbers and historical trends. What is the acceptance rate for a regular application and what's the acceptance rate for early? And if there's a stark enough difference, maybe it is wise to take that extra work early on. We'll come back to this topic in future discussions, but most regular application deadlines are during this month. Take us through a quick New York minute recollection of the stress levels for all the folks that waited till the last day of the deadline, which is the worst thing you can do. Take us through some of the do's and don'ts in a New York minute, and then we'll wrap up for the last few questions.
So a lot of the deadlines are on January 1st, which is New Year's Eve. Some of them are around the first week of January. So it's a lot of stress to get the supplements done because most of the colleges that you end up applying for regular decision, maybe some of your like schools that you really, really want to go to, so the reach schools. So definitely take some time to not spend all of your Christmas break just doing supplements instead of enjoying some time to like actually relax, because the process is so draining. So definitely space out like days that you want to do certain supplements. Make sure that you have an organized calendar so you know when to do certain things. So let's say if you're applying to Cornell, take some time to research the school, allocate some time to just be able to look into the school without being stressed about deadlines. So space out your calendar, make sure that you have enough time to do research, to write, to think, and to breathe, because that will get you through. Having some time to talk to your friends or decompress as everything starts going all crazy around this time will help you get through the process.
Fantastic. Hopefully everyone caught that. And again, those are facts, super facts. You do not want to waste your senior year, Christmas break, or winter holidays just drowning in your applications and the stress of it. You do need to try to get a lot of that out of the way to enjoy the last, time that you'll get a chance to really have, the bonding time with your friends and crews. Macaulay Honors College. We're big fans of Macaulay Honors College at Conservatorial. It's become one of the top schools that students in the New York area apply to. What is the top reason that students apply to Macaulay Honors Program? Quality education for free. Students get early registration to their classes compared to regular CUNY students. Opportunities to have study abroad program for free. All the above. What's the number of kids from Stuyvesant High School going to Macaulay this year or last year?
I would say at least 30. I'm not too sure, because a lot of the people that ended up getting into Macaulay or considering Macaulay also got into really good institutions that are equally as competitive. And so they're just weighing their options right now. But definitely Macaulay is like one of the top choices for people in my school.
And a lot of that is due to the fact that Macaulay does serve students with similar profiles to the kids in the specialized high schools or top New York City schools. You have a lot of new immigrants, working class families, very, very highly competitive academics, and and oftentimes students in Macaulay have to work during college to help support bills at home, and it just becomes quite the perfect college experience for those who have to take all those factors into consideration. So if you end up in Macaulay, make sure to apply for a job at Conservatorial, and we can work together as well. The following are required letters of recommendation for the Common App. 2 teachers and 1 guidance counselor. How long before this process did you figure out who was going to be your recommenders, Tashfia?
Around this time, actually. So May and June are the primary months where you reach out to your teachers and try to get them to write your letters of rec. And a lot of teachers have their own processes of like figuring out if they want to write a recommendation for you, especially since there are tons of students that teachers typically teach. So definitely be sure to reach out to teachers that you have a good relationship with or you really enjoy their class, and you can talk to them and they will be willing to write your rec, hopefully. So.
And again, you never want to give them that surprise too late. You got to let them know way, way, way early ahead of time. I'm waiting and counting on you for letters of recommendation. And it's up to the student to provide regular reminders to the teacher or the staff, because they're not going to remember the dozens to possibly hundreds of letters that they have to get out. So please be very proactive on that on the student side. Personal statement questions. Which of the following are personal statement prompts on the Common App? We see the 3. Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent. Reflect on a time that I apologize for this PDF not allowing at it. They should be listed on the Common App website. What are your top 3 tips for writing a good personal statement? And I'll share. You share one of yours, and I'll share one of mine, and then we'll come up with a total of 5. So you get the first pick.
So I would say to list out, there's like 7 or 8 prompts usually, or there are like a few prompts that are on the Common App website. List them out and sit down and make some time to think about each of those prompts. Like think about one experience that you can talk about that's related to it. And it doesn't need to be something profound. It could be something really small as well, something that's meaningful to you. And just make sure
I got
to
the
list
next one.
ideas.
I got the next
Yeah.
one then. About like my vote is write it yourself. Do not get an older brother, sister, cousin, or mama, mommy, or any relative to write it for you. This is meant to be a reflection of you and your best version. And if any students are trying to get that done by someone else, it will immediately be picked up by the reader. So you want to do this yourself and be the most authentic, true version of yourself as possible. Tashfia, you got the next tip.
Definitely brainstorm with a friend as well. Think about having a friend to just bounce ideas off of, have feedback about, or even having someone just writing drafts out that to flesh out your ideas really helps.
All right. My favorite, the last one I'll give, and you can round up our top 5. I would say practice a first, like once you figure out your outline for one of your statements, do your first draft while not trying to make it perfect. Just do your draft, get it all out there. Even if you have to go above the word count by a little bit, don't go double, but if you have to surpass it, because then you can take a break for a couple of days, hopefully, reset, mentally take a look at it with a fresh set of eyes, and you'll see all the editing, that magic that you'll be under control. So don't aim to make it perfect. Just make it complete, answer the questions, and with each revision, you can make it, fine-tune it. Last tip goes to you.
Sometimes we feel kind of stuck when we're writing for a long time, or we're thinking really hard about what to write about. So I definitely recommend going on YouTube and like hearing people about their processes, hearing some of their essays. You don't need to replicate it, but just having some ideas of how to approach your essay can really help.
Fantastic. Thank you. We're going to come back. How many personal statements, not counting supplements, the students have to write for their common application? Wanted to double check with you. Is it 1, not counting the supplement?
Yeah, just 1, not counting the supplements.
And how common are supplements for top colleges?
Really common. Like Columbia, for instance, has 6 supplements. Other schools have a lot. So make sure to space out time to write really strong supplements for schools that you're interested in.
Great. Please choose the correct definition for a safety school. A college you're most likely to get into if your GPA and test scores exceed the average of that school. Safety. We wanted to make sure to include that, so students applied to at least 3 or 4 or 5 safety schools. You never want to get too comfortable or too arrogant and mistakenly think that you're going to get into all your targets, because you won't. You're going to get into hopefully most of your safe reaches, because you definitely won't do that. So you have to make sure to invest time into your safety schools as well. Which of the following colleges have reported the best campus life? We want to talk about campus life because we don't want students to only think about the academics, only think about the jobs and the pressures that parents put on us. We had varying choices here, and it could be a giveaway that probably the best weather in the country, some really fantastic academic, research, athletic programs like USC. So there's something for everyone at USC, and I'm sure there's a lot for everyone at Hofstra and Manhattan College, but just keep in mind the happiness factor. Tashfia, I got to ask you, it's pretty rare for us to meet Bengali New Yorkers, whether men or women, leave the state for college. Even most guys I know are like, I'm going to stay in New York. What are you most looking forward to your campus life in Florida?
I'm really looking forward to actually having a dorm, being in a new environment that's like surrounded by palm trees, first of all, which is amazing. And just meeting new people outside of being at home, like being in the city. I feel like when you're in that kind of college environment and on campus, you have to do campus activities. You have to be somewhat social and make friends everywhere. So I'm really excited to like have that type of typical college experience that I always saw in movies and I thought I wasn't going to have because I lived in New York City. So yeah.
That's interesting because for me, I had to live in Harlem, before all the gentrification started, and for me, I was looking forward to going to college in New York City while living away from home. Because my tuition at CUNY was so affordable, I was able to save up money for an apartment with a roommate. And when I think about it, would Florida have been a good fit for me back then? Maybe not, but maybe I would have gone through it and just experienced something new for myself. So again, for some, getting out of state and especially trying out new weather and a new climate and just a campus culture is what you're looking forward to. And for those of you who are really need the mix of both, find out those top colleges around big cities. Get out of New York. Get some experiences out there if you have the freedom from your if you don't have a family to take care of and stuff like that. And really use these next 4 years to focus on yourself. The average student attending a 4-year public college pays this much out of pocket. We wanted to make sure to remind you all that not every single college, not every single kid has to pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 sticker prices. The out-of-pocket cost on average is $12,000, and depending on the school, hopefully depending on your financial aid applications and how much money your family makes, that out-of-pocket expense is even lessened. So if your family is making less money, oftentimes it helps with financial aid support and grants that may even be in your favor. So hopefully that number is lower for every single one of us here. So the last few questions are a little bit on our track record. So since 2018, Cons has helped this many students get 1,300 plus on the SATs. So we've had about 750 students with 1,300 pluses. We had about 280 kids with 1,400 pluses since 2018, and at least 77 students with at least a 1,500. Tashfia, you happen to be one of those students who took our SAT program last summer. Who was your teacher? Curious.
I didn't take the SAT. Did not take the SAT program, but I definitely had a lot of mentors that helped me with the process. So.
Right, and were you part of some of our college workshops? I keep thinking that you were part of our college workshops and summer, but you may have helped lead some of the college workshops later on when you joined.
Yeah, I definitely led a lot of the college workshops with Saya, just to help other parents that have like kids that are currently underclassmen figure out the college process or just the high school situation.
So for a lot of you who had a chance to visualize the flyer, that whole group of kids in front of me were the kids from the SAT group last year in person at Jackson Heights. And we were doing similar conversations like this every Friday, discussing the college admit pathway. So since 2018, Con students have been accepted to the following top colleges: Harvard, Columbia, Princeton, Sophie Davis, Brooklyn BA program, Nikon program, and that's a misspell, NYCOM, NYCOM, New York College of Osteopathic Medicine, CUNY's Business Liberal Arts programs, all of the above. And that was also from this year alone. So we're, proud of all the students that, have some great news. So with that being the end of our presentation, we want to use the last 5-10 minutes for questions from everyone else here. We do want to address some of the questions. We do have, I really do not want to work. What is an alternate of having a good job? Having a job. Honestly, if you can find a type of work that you love, it'll never feel like a job. It sounds like the most cliche thing in the world, But if you enjoy video games and you can get paid to play your video games and someone's willing to pay you for that, that's your job. And it just doesn't feel like that. I'd absolutely suggest entrepreneurship and taking classes around entrepreneurship that can help teach you how to become self-independent, become your own boss. You're still going to have to work, but it just won't feel like a job. Let's see what other questions we got. How do you choose a major? That's something that Tashfia and I may never get to do because we're in our programs. Tashfia, do you get to choose a major?
Yeah, I actually do get to choose a major for now. So, but I'm still, even though I have my major planned out, I'm still kind of thinking about changing it because I have different interests. But some colleges do offer like an intersection of two different majors. Like, for instance, when I was like applying to Northeastern, one of the programs that I really looked into was their biology and political science major, which is like an intersection of both. So definitely look out for that. But yeah, you can choose your major up till by the end of your sophomore year of college. So you have a lot of time to just figure things out, see what works for you. But yeah.
Choosing a major is probably one of the most important things that I've seen young people struggle with in college. And I think the biggest struggle is we get caught up in trying to figure out, what will it take for me to get into law school? What will it take for me to get into medical school? So a lot of times I've seen college students say, oh, I know, chemistry will look really good for me to get into medical school because I know it's all up in the MCATs. And then you take a look at their high school transcript, and similar to myself, chemistry happens to be their weakest subject. So I'm like, dog, why are you majoring in chemistry when it's clearly your weakest subject? And a lot of kids are like, oh, because I thought that would help me get into medical school. So I see a lot of kids taking bio because you want to be a doctor. When you take bio in college, most of your freshman year class will be on like photosynthesis, plant physiology, molecular biology, and like stuff that's really in like cellular biology. So it's not like an anatomy lab or physiology like you imagine. My best suggestion would be to find the subjects that you are most passionate about. And if you don't know what you're most passionate about, that's fine. Go look at your transcript and find the subjects that you're most often doing the best in. Because usually your strongest subject has some sort of affinity, that you have some sort of affinity towards, because that's how it became your strongest subjects. And I would focus on that. I'd also consider the fact that if you want to go into law school, you want to become a medical doctor, or you want to become a pharmacist, you absolutely want to major in stuff that's a little bit away and has a good balance to medicine or pre-dental or pre-pharmacy or pre-law. You don't want someone who's super scientific and has zero experience on human interaction or writing a term paper or presenting in a group. You really, really do need to have a well-rounded college experience. And that's how I would choose a major. We got a lot of questions. We got some questions above. We had about 25 of us join. If I wanted to volunteer at a hospital during the summer or during weekends, how would I do that? Mohammed, I am so sorry about this crisis. I don't anticipate any hospital in their right mind continuing their volunteer programs for high school kids given the risk of healthcare systems right now. However, there are an increasing number of telehealth or virtual healthcare organizations that may be picking up work. And if there are ways to be involved with their teams, I would absolutely refrain from physically trying to be at any hospital between now and next year, because the health risks are way too high for hospitals to want to take on high school kids on a volunteer basis. It's really an essential thing right now. Sorry to break it to you, Mohammed.
Just a quick thing, Mohammed. This is kind of strange, but a lot of doctors are also on TikTok, or a lot of people pre-med or students are on TikTok, and they give a lot of really, really useful opportunities about how to get involved and like do scientific things, even remotely. So definitely be on the lookout for that and use social media as a way to like figure things out and see what you can do during this crisis.
Great feedback. And we have a lot of doctors that are physicians now that have graduated from Khan's SAT or gone on to like college through our some of our services. And I want to just give a shout out to them because they may be on TikTok for like 30 seconds, but the rest of their week, they are saving lives, getting sick with COVID themselves, and doing anything and everything to help save our society. And I just worry so much for them. So when you do see the TikTok videos, please know that that's just a really, really small part of their day where they finally get to be human beings and just live a little bit. Otherwise, they have, they're being heroes throughout the week and putting their family and themselves at risk. To apply for Sophie Davis, should you have a balance of both science and non-science extracurriculars? Yes. Even for a place like Sophie Davis, it's a pre-med program. They don't want to see someone with a 5 on every single AP, and that's like AP Chem, AP Bio, AP Calc, and not knowing how to communicate. Sophie Davis is very, very focused on patient medicine and community health medicine and patient care. So there is an interview process where you really have to showcase your ability to be a human being. You're not a test-taking robot. So I would absolutely encourage, if you have the opportunity, to join a speech club. If you don't want to join the whole team, maybe a speech club or like some kind of presentation society or something that'll help you work on your communication skills in case that's something that in case it's been too science heavy. Things like that'll help you in that interview process, because we have a lot of kids who get to reach that point for the interview process every single year. All right, we got a few questions coming up. To everyone, just a quick time check. The time is now 5:23. I recognize that a lot of us here have been observing fasting and Roja, and I do want to be respectful of the 5:30 end time. So we are in our final 5-minute stretch. What are some majors I should consider to become a doctor? NT, I'll answer it in 30 seconds. The point of your major is so you can do well in it and enjoy it. It's not to impress the school, to the medical school. If you were an art history major and you were killing competitions and you did well on the MCAT, they'd be super proud to take you into their medical school. If you were really into, hospitality and that suddenly became your major and you still took your MCAT and you took the required classes and you did well, that's great too. Your major has to be something that you enjoy and you see yourself tolerating for 4 years, not just to survive, but to thrive. And the classes become difficult. It's like when you're a senior in college or a junior in college, you're taking level 301, level 401, you don't want to pick a major that is not a good fit for you. So you got to follow your transcript and your heart. Tashfia, 30, 60 seconds. How would you select your major? How will you select your major in a couple of semesters when you're down in Florida?
So right now I am a behavioral neuroscience major. So it's something that I've always been interested in. I've always looked into psychology. And so this is just a field that I chose because of the fact that I really like it. And I'm not trying to go into anything else because that doesn't simply interest me. But definitely being open to taking classes in other fields does help out. But if just choose your major because you love it, you would want to learn more about it over time as well. So that's all I have to say. We have a question from Shakira.
Mm-hmm.
My school doesn't offer any APs because it's a CTE school, but my program isn't something I'd like to pursue in college. What should I do?
What are the alternatives you have that you would suggest to AP courses? There are college-level classes that several CUNYs and some community colleges offer. Some are for credit, some are non-credit, just so you can get the experience. what is the next best thing that counts for as much as you can if you're not having access to APs?
Definitely trying to go out of, like, again, doing colleges outside, like doing courses outside of your school and going into like looking at programs that are offered at like other colleges definitely does help out. Also, I would invest a lot of time into extracurricular activities or like societies that you're really involved, like you would want to become more involved in. So if you're really into research, going into something like that, or if you're really into math, competing in competitions. I know there are tons of hackathons that go on across New York City. So if you're into coding, you can definitely explore that as well. So investing your time into extracurriculars or harder level courses outside of school definitely does help.
Next question. Thank you so much for that, Tashfia. If I get into Sophie Davis, is there a certain average you have to maintain to stay in the program? When I was a student there many years ago, our requirement was you had to pass every single class with at least a B minimum. You have to maintain a B average, and that number could be up and down. A B could mean an 80 to 100 in some classes or a 70 to 100 in really challenging classes. If you got a C or anything lower, you'd have to take a remediation course or a makeup exam. And there's also something called mini boards, which are shelf exams that you have to take. So even outside of your regular GPA that you have to maintain, you have to pass these. Like, it's practically like taking an SAT-2 or an AP course, medical school level, at the end of every single course that's administered by the USMLEs, like the National Board of Medical Examiners. So the advantage of my time at Sophie Davis was that I didn't have to take the MCATs. However, the trade-off was taking really challenging shelf exams and mini boards that we had to get through. That was my experience. However, Josefa, there are a lot of updates to the way the Sophie Davis program and grade maintenance and eligibility to stay in the program is. The best thing you need to do for every single one of you, you have to go through that part of the website of that school. Every single specialty program that you can think of, which include Tashfia's or my former program at Sophie Davis, have very school-specific rules and guidelines in order to maintain and graduate from their program. That's something that you will need to know and understand before you even consider applying. And if you ever need to reach out to students in those schools, reach out to us here at Cons, and we'll figure out a way to get you in touch with them to see, like, how hard is this process to survive here. I personally had a much easier time at SUNY Downstate, where I got my medical degree, than the college portion. Medical school was more challenging was easier for me than college. So it can differ for everyone. I heard grades in specialized high schools are considered differently than other schools. Is that true? Yeah. Every single high school is looked at similar to other high schools in their academic profile. Every single high school out there in the United States has different rankings called your average SAT, your school's average SAT, your school's class size, and the number of college classes that your school offers. So there's a school profile that the colleges see, and you get compared to other students who are applying from similar high school profiles. So if you're applying from a rural high school with a certain profile, it's unlikely that you're going to be compared right next to the kid from a totally different school environment. So rest assured, there are ways that colleges take these things into account. The school difficulty level, that's often reflected in their college readiness index, which we can take a look at. And also understand that certain schools give up weighted GPAs where they add a few extra points if you're taking honors and AP classes, and colleges are very aware of the formula for every single high school and what their weight formula is, so they can compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges rather than mixing up. Great question, Mohammed Rahim. Anything you want to add to that, Tashfia, that I have not mentioned, as far as the way they would look at, two different high schools or two different profiles?
I agree with everything that you said. Like, usually you're competing against people that are in the same range as you or in similar environments as you. So the best tip that I have, regardless of if you go to a specialized high school, if you don't, is to make sure you just do as well as you can in your classes, because in essence, you're kind of competing against the people around you, but that doesn't necessarily make an impact on your ability to stand out against them. So just make sure to do well. Try to do as many extracurricular activities as you really care about, and just try to enhance every single aspect of not only like your college app, but just yourself.
Also, sadly, if you're not confident about the rigor of your high school, performing well on these standardized exams is another way to reflect how well you can hang across the board with other students. So I saw a question earlier, like I go to a trade school, a CTE school, and there are oftentimes these academic classes aren't, APs aren't offered. What can I do them? So just know that no matter what school environment you're coming from, they're not expecting you to reflect the same way a kid from a different school will. So the stuff that's out of your hand, they're not going to penalize you for. Any other questions? The time is now 5:32. We've all spent about 60 to 90 minutes going over the college surveys. If you guys are still here, was this helpful? Was this not? We'll probably send you some surveys. If you have any final questions, I do want to thank Tashfia for your time. I know that a lot of students showed up to find out what their scores were or hear my guidance. However, I know that we couldn't have had this conversation without your real world experience that you just went through. I know I see a lot of thank yous. Thank you so much. Thank you. You see that? And hats off to Tashfia. She's been one of our strongest and best teammates at Cons Jackson Heights. She's been one of our teachers in the Common Core program for the younger kids. And while we will miss her at Cons Tutorial from our team when she goes off to college, we're just really excited that she's carrying this torch for all of you. And when all of you apply to colleges like Tashfia's and get in, and you need to have permission from mom and dad to send you off to Florida, y'all will know you can easily call Tashfia. Her mom will call your mom. They'll talk it out, and then you'll be on the next plane to visit their campus, hopefully. So we do want to share these resources with you all. Thank you all for being here. I think there will be a taped version of this. I think we have a recording on this. So for any of your friends who haven't caught this, if you felt that this helped them, let them know, and we'll hopefully have it up on YouTube by the end of this work week. All right. Peace out, everyone. Have a great iftar, and have a great Eid, and hopefully we'll see you guys in a few weeks. Stay safe, Anthony. Hopefully we'll see you guys in a few weeks for the next topic on this whole college admissions process. We want to be there for you all, and especially all the juniors. Have a great evening, everyone. Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe, guys. Bye.